All right, this is the first game we're catching of SirSmokes' first stuff for the quarterfinals of TW16, round 3. Very over-determined hands. The rule set is you must use a 9-9. They both used a 9-9-4-3. A 9-8. They've used a 9-8-4-3 and a 9-8-5-4 respectively. Very similar cards. Notice they've both also done opposite corners. An 8-8. They've both used the same 8-8. And an 8-7-6-5, and a 7-7. Now, the 7-7 is where there's the most potential for variation, because you have 7-7-6-5s, which are fun and popular and dynamic, and 1-7-9-7s, which have a lot more raw power. Now, in general, I prefer 7-5-7-6s, but without plus, it does get tricky. Same plus wall combo. So there's very little room to maneuver on the hands, so it's going to come down almost entirely to gameplay. And there's no plus, which I think is the most important rule to good gameplay. So I'm probably going to be somewhat negative towards this rule set. However, let's look at what we've got here. Stuff started in 3. With a corner, he had 1 recapture on both ways. So Smokes attacks it quickly, and we can notice a lot of potential for Stuff to end up having a right weakness. There's no plus wall on the recapture, but I think, well, what is Smokes intending? Neither player has 5. So Smokes can happily follow up in 1 or 9, knowing the opponent doesn't have 5. But then Stuff can potentially play the other of 1 or 9, knowing Smokes doesn't have 5 either. So, is there safety in either of those squares? Yes. Smokes has lots of safety in 9 himself. But Stuff has safety in 1 with 7-5-7-6. So if we saw a continuation like 4-9-9-3 and 2, if Smokes wants to stick something, let's say 7-2-8-8 and 9, which gives safety, then Stuff can play 7-5-7-6 and 1, which gives safety back. His remaining cards aren't amazing, but they're not so bad. I would think Smokes has to find a tie there. I would think Stuff is not at high risk in that position. Okay, what if Smokes intends to go in 1 rather than 9? 4-9-9-3 and 2, say 4-9-8-5 and 1. You don't want to play a 9 down because combo. 4-9-8-5 and 1. Stuff has a choice between 4 or 9. He can take in 4. That is susceptible to combos, though. 9-3-4-8 in 4 is hit by 7-2-8-8 and 5. So more likely he should go 9, just locking in the card in 6, even if the card 9 can be taken. Which card do you put there? Well, the thing is, 9-3-4-8 is kind of important for hitting 1, but it's also maybe your worst card for that endgame. It's either 9-3-4-8 or 7-5-6, 7-6. And 9-3-4-8 is comboed. I can see plus walls. So it probably has to be 7-5-7-6. That looks dangerous to me. I'm not sure what's happening there. That seems dangerous. So I think Smoke's idea is to meet 2 with 1. Can you go somewhere other than 2 if you're Stuff? Well, the other critical squares are 9 and 8. 8 is interesting, because you already have a plus wall in 9. You already have a plus wall in 9. Ooh, 8 could be really good here. Let's say you played 8-7-6-5 in 8. Does this work? Is this crazy? So close. Okay, 8-7-6-5 and 8 sets up 9-3-4-8 in both 9 and 5. It does concede 4-9-8-5 and 2, but you have 4-9-3-3 and 1 comboing back. Of course, then they have 7-8-6-5 and 4 comboing that back. So you probably sequence it such that you play 8, they go 9, you go 5, and if they go 2, you go 7-5-7-6 and 7 and keep 4-9-9-3 to hopefully take enough in that endgame. I think that's probably a tie. I'm not sure entirely, but 8-7-6-5 and 8 has to be considered. Except there's no plus. It doesn't have to be considered. No plus, ignore me. Setting up on things is very difficult. Okay. Well, that leads to another move. What about 9, 3, 4, 8, and 8? Setting up sames in both 5 and 9. That definitely has some appeal, but I think is unlikely to be that strong. Because the opponent is going to go 9, you're going to be like, yes, I got the same in 5. And then they're going to go in 2, capturing 3, and you're going to wish you still had 4, 9, 9, 3 in your hand, and like your combo didn't actually lock in that much. So probably not a great move. Is there any reason to start in 9? Eh. I think you kind of got to play 4, 9, 9, 3, and 2, and let the chips fall where they may. I don't see something else that looks too appealing. Wilds have the double same setup, and it's just not very appealing. He does go for the double same setup. Okay, I am skeptical of this. One reason I like these moves if the opponent has trouble taking 3. But Smokes does not have trouble taking 3. And in fact, 4, 9, 8, 5, and 2 is a pretty good card if Ifrit is out of Stuff's hand, because only one of Stuff's cards can recapture that. His cards are a little bit clunky. That 7, 5, 7, 6 could end up being a little bit of dead weight. Yeah, I think this has started to look very dangerous for Stuff. One problem with moves in 8 is, especially with weak numbers facing towards 9, they give Smokes freedom to figure out which card do I not want in my hand and put that in 9. And unless that card is 1797, which actually there's a line I saw that could be the card you want to hold on to, or you want to get rid of, then you have freedom to put something in 9. And Stuff is now kind of obliged to go 5. And then Smokes has powerful options in both 2 and 7. Yeah. Yeah, this is going to be scary. This looks really promising for Smokes. You kind of have to go 4, 9, 9, 3, and 5 at this point. I mean, I guess 4, 9, 9, 3, and 2 is legal. But, like, if they play 4, 9, 8, 5, and 1, what are you doing? Unless you randomly have sweepers. But you never randomly have sweepers without plus. I miss plus. Okay, so 4, 9, 9, 3, and 5 is critical. And then the question is, does Smokes have a win? And the 3 moves that have potential to win, I think, are 4, 9, 8, 5, and 2. Less likely, but 4, 9, 8, 5, and 7. And 7, 8, 6, 5, and 7. Those are going to be the critical moves. So let's check 4, 9, 8, 5, and 7 first, because I don't think it will work, so we can get rid of it quickly. If 4, 9, 8, 5, and 7, then it's 5, 5, and Stuff can at the very least... I'm not sure why I'm looking at this game so much from Stuff's perspective, but I guess he's been the kind of player who was on the first turn we saw, and Smoke's move is straightforward. The question is, does Stuff hold? So 4, 9, 8, 5, and 7. My guess is the best move is 8, 7, 6, 5, and 2. When 7, 5, 7, 6, due to same, is a really good up-down sweeper, and I don't see how you could lose that position. Okay, 1 down, 2 to go. Next up, let's do 7, 8, 6, 5, and 7, which is safe, and makes it 5, 5. And here, 7, 5, 7, 6 is not going to be sufficient up, down, because 4, 9, 8, 5 can land in 1 if you go in 2. And it's also really difficult to have side-to-side sweepers. And your cards don't recapture themselves. This looks really bad to me. 7, 8, 6, 5, and 7. All right, we'll come back to that. Let's check 4, 9, 8, 5, and then come back. So 4, 9, 9, 3, and 5. Yuna in 2. You are down 6, 4. But, no, that doesn't work. Okay, but 7, 5, 6, 5, and 7 holds the tie. Your 8, 7, 6, 5 has sufficient captures wherever they go. So the problem is, you go 5, they go 7. Ifrit 5, 7, 8, 6, 5, 7. It's 5, 5, can you hold? If you go 8, 7, 6, 5, and 2, they go Una in 1, and you have nothing. Alright, he's going something else. 8, 7, 6, 5, is he going in 7? Okay, that's not so, that seems reasonable. I wasn't there yet, because I hadn't finished evaluating the move in 5. But it does look to me like 5 loses. Maybe I'm missing something. But if 5 loses, then 8, 7, 6, 5, and 7 does make a bunch of sense. You're trying to land 2 as late as possible. Or sorry, you're trying to land 5 as late as possible. And you're making 5 not very appealing for them. And you're keeping 4, 9, 9, 3 as long as possible. Okay. This seems like a realistic try. It does allow a combo to 1, 7, 9, 7, and 4, but it never combos anything extra, so not something to be particularly worried about. If Smokes goes in 4, then I think... that doesn't quite work. I thought stuff wanted to go 1, but with 7, 5, 7, 6 and keep 4, 9, 9, 3, but that doesn't quite work because Smokes has the same in 2. Don't think you flip enough. I think you lose 6, 4. I think your only cards at the end are 5 and the stuff 5 flips, so that's 3, 6, and 8. Incidentally, my brain's been really fuzzy for about a day and a half, so forgive horrible miscalculations here. Been working hard at chess, and I have been doing great, and I've just been awful the last couple days. Alright, Smokes just goes 5. That's not very ambitious, though. Now Stuff can play 2, and because he's up 6, 4, he can only lose to a double capture, and the only double captures are in 4, 1, 7, 9, 7, and Stuff doesn't win because he doesn't plus that, but he does tie. Huh. I probably missed something, but I kind of thought 1, 7, 9, 7, and 4 worked. Kind of thought that worked. Alright, I have to bring up the alternate solver for this one because the rules are strange, and my normal solver doesn't work so well with no plus wall. Where are you? You're in applications. Triple triad solver. Huh. I really feel like Smokes might have had a win this game. I really think this looked like some kind of win was maybe missed. Alright, I should be putting in the score. But now 49932 should hold. It's a powerful thing being up 6-4. But I probably missed something. I'm just saying what I see, and what I see is often wrong, especially today. God, it's been a dark day. So the quarterfinals. This is quarterfinals. The rule set is level 8 SPWC must use a 9-9, a 9-8, an 8-7-6-5, an 8-8, and a 7-7. Okay. And we have Stuff, SirSmokes. The game went 7-2, 8-8-3, 9-3, 4-9-6, I think was a good move. 9-3, 4-8-8, I am skeptical of, but might have held. 8-7-6-5-7. No. 7-2, 8-8-9 first, then 8-7-6-5-7, then 7-8-6-5-5, and now we are here. Alright, this is probably a tie, but went the other way. Yep. 4-9-9-3, such a useful sweeper. Alright, Gotta put in the cards. So, same plus wall. This is a slightly bigger pane to use. Red player can go first. 7288 9348. We have to type the cards in individually. 8765 7576 and 4993. All right, and Smokes' hand was 9349 7288 7865 4985. And what did he just pick up? He picked up his 77, which is 1797, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Alright. This feels like it was really dangerous for stuff. Like, Smokes got a nice advantage. Maybe there was no conversion ever, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a conversion. Alright, I think I have the rules right. So 7, 2, 8, 8, and 3. Looks like a starter that's probably going to be behind. Smokes attacks it immediately, and it is quite dangerous. 4, 9, 9, 3, and 2 does tie. 9, 3, 4, 8, and 8 does not. Smokes is winning. Now, which card do you put in 9? Well, 7288 seemed like a really good choice. You can't actually use 1797 because the same in 5 then hits you too hard. 6 is yours. And you want to keep 7865, that faces the action and is really strong, as is 4985. So we picked 7288. Was that the right choice? Yes, that was winning. And now, if 4993 and 5, which was our main line, then indeed 78657 is a win. Okay, I calculated something right. Stuff went for 8765 and 7. And I thought 17974 worked. Specifically, I thought the critical line was, sorry, I can't flip you over, 17974, 75761, 75862, 49935, and Smokes wins 6-4. And it looks like that was right. Yeah, 17974 wins. Smokes went for 7865 and 5, and now there's a couple ties. There's my line in 2 and Stuff's line in 4. So really nicely chosen which card for Smokes to use in 9. Stuff going for the combo setup was a mistake. 5 just wasn't a valuable enough square, and it used too valuable a card. But Smokes didn't end up converting. Something scared him off of 1797 in 4. Alright, so a tie in game 1. But a very dangerous one for Stuff, right? Clear advantage Smokes there. Able to get a winning position. I think the move in 6, attacking the starter, was really strong. And I think no P was tough there. But I think you kind of had to just play 4993 and 2 after they captured your starter and feel sad. And try to muddle to a draw that way. But it's tough. What a difficult game. Yeah, so now we're debating over how long the game should be. 5 minutes, 7 minutes. Smokes has noticed he missed the win there. Yeah. The 1797 and 4. But he did find the win on move 4, right? He did have to pick the right card for 9. Not the hardest pick, but I think 6 and 9 was a very good sequence from him. And I think his move in 6 attacking the starter was really on point. But yeah, I do expect Smokes to win this matchup. Both because when you haven't played for a while, you're going to have difficulty with oddish rule sets, but also I believe in the modern flock of players to generally hold up well against the old guard. But I do think Stuff is a good player and has done really well so far. I just, Smokes is top 20. Um, but not impossible for Stuff to win at all. And yeah, my bracket, I did have Stuff making it this far, and I had Stuff going out here to Smokes. All right. I should probably pause while we wait for the game to be up. All right, we are back with game 2. What changes have we seen? Well, some rather big ones from SirSmokes the Rather Great, right? We still have an 8765, that's forced. We still have a 9943, that's basically forced. But he's gone for a 9871. I forgot those existed because they didn't back in the day, so they're easy for me to forget. But there's kind of 9854s and 9843s and stuff like that, but there are now 9871s as an option. Smokes has also shown there are multiple options for the 77. There are 7765s and 9771s, but there's also 877s. And he's gone for an 877 and an 88 horizontal vertical. I was talking in my last videos about how I need a word for that. I want a word for like the four. Let's say, how many types of cards are there? There are corner cards, right? There are two strong numbers that are much stronger than the other two, and they are next to each other. And we'll use corner card, like pure corner, to mean like a 9-9, right? Something which has the two highest numbers are tied and next to each other, 7-7 and 8-8. Pure corner. Okay. Then we got wheel cards. 1789 is a wheel card, because from the biggest or lowest number, you can go around getting sequentially bigger or smaller. The 9 is next to the 8 is next to the next highest number, right? I think of this as a wheel card. It goes around. 8765 is another good example. 9348 is another good example. 7658. This game has gone for lots of wheel cards. Then there's spear cards. So Smokes used one last game, 7865, right? Where the highest number, the 8, is sandwiched, is right next to the next highest numbers. I think of that as a spear card. Okay, so we have pure corners, wheels, and spears. But I want a better way to say, or corners, wheels, and spears. I want a better way to say 8187, like that, rather than saying up down, because up down's a little confusing, because what if it was side to side? And I want a word that encompasses both up down and side to side. Maybe I should just say both ways? I don't know. I want some word that like evokes going two opposite directions. Two-way street. Two-way card. We could go two-way card. Alright. And then there's some other stuff, like 7873 is certainly a spear card, right? But it's very much like a tri-powered spear card, where like 9348 is a wheel and 9438 is a spear, but 9438 isn't very spear-like. It's much more of just a pure corner than either, right? So I don't have the exact definitions, but I think, yeah, I think I want corners, spears, wheels, because like calling 8765 a corner, like sure it has a top two corner value, but it's like it doesn't play like a corner card. It plays like a wheel card, right? Okay, we should actually look at the position. So Smokes at first turn this time. I have no idea whether same plus wall favors first or second turn. Based on the last game, I think we can comfortably say Smokes got an advantage out of second turn, but we didn't really consider how we got there. So Stuff does not have a capture in 8. So this obviously has the potential to put on real pressure. So if you're from Stuff's perspective, my instinct, the kind of face theory instinct, is you either take immediately in 4, and I think Stuff likes taking things. taking starters. I used to think taking starters was kind of a low class thing to do because it's what the noobs did, but like I'm fully on board with taking starters these days. Uh, but for a long time, I was very frustrated that players like MC would take starters and still get good results, even though this is obviously an amateur move. But no, it's not an amateur move at all, and it was just something I didn't yet understand and was frustrated that someone was getting away with something I had decided was wrong. So, two main options are take from 4 or set up 8. But with only same, your setup options are somewhat limited. 9-3-4-8 in 5 or in 9 is possible. In 9, you do not have a recapture in 8, so I think we should. Oh, sorry, 4-9-9-3 in 5 or 9. Sorry, setting up 9-3-4-8. 4-9-9-3 in 5 or 9, or 7-5-7-6 in 5 are ways to say I have both sides. They're a little clumsy, though. I would not be excited about 7-5-7-6. Note, it does not set up the opponent 7-6-5-8 both ways, because there's no plus. But you can probably get away with it. I think any of those moves should be enough to get a draw, but they all feel a little clumsy to me. But maybe everything's clumsy. The other option is to take immediate. And I think that should probably hold as well. But I do think you want to interact with this move. You don't want to give Smokes freedom to just go in 4 next and continue posing problems. Especially because you don't have a great card to land in 1. You know, your 4-9-9-3 cannot land in 1. It gets comboed via 2. And also because if you're building out from a starter, you have a lot of freedom over which card to use. Right? If, say, stuff goes in 3 and Smokes gets to go in 4, he can pick which card goes in 4 based on which cards he wants to leave for the rest of the game and which cards he wants to, to have used. And so, much like last game where stuff's move in 8 let Smokes choose which card to play in 9, Smokes would get to optimize for the situation, and I think that's quite dangerous. Um, so, anywho, sorry, just reading my chat. Right, does that set up? That does not set up 8. So, Smokes can consider going 4. But he is saying, then I go 8, and you don't have 6. Interesting. Okay, this was a way of playing I did not consider, that clearly has merit. Okay, so I think the main line is probably 8. I think it's going to be 9-9-3-4 and 8. Like, my first instinct is to go 4, but then I think stuff does build a pretty effective wall with 9-3-4-8 and 8. So I think better is to go 8 yourself. That way you have flipped 9, and he has already picked up the card to do so. I should start inputting this game. So Smokes is such a fast player. 7-8, 7-3-7. But he gets to like the heart of the position really quickly. And then just makes his move when he's confident. But yeah, here the question is Stuff's hand overworked? Because if 4-9-9-3 captures in either 4 or 6, then he cannot use it again. However, he has 7-5-7-6 for 6 and 7-2-8-8 for 4. For some reason, I missed the plus wall in 6. I'm kind of oblivious. So now Stuff has choice between lots of different L's. And I think they should be fine. I think this one's just going to peter out into a pretty comfortable draw for both players. Right? Like, Stuff would be playing for a win if he could play in 4 or 6 while setting up 5. But as far as I can tell, he cannot do that. And Smokes would be playing for a win if Stuff had slightly more limited capture options in 4 or 6. but he has 4993 for both, and he also has a backup option for both. And to me, that says this one looks like a more comfortable time. Which means I think Stuff's move in 9 was very good, and I think it might also mean second turn is looking good on this rule set. Because I think if we assume Smokes to be the better player here, then, and he's certainly done better over these two games, big advantage first game on second turn, even second game on first turn, right? Just generally suggests, okay, not that this player is better, but this player is doing better so far, and that second turn seems to be where the winning chances are. I also think we have a fun contrast. This is like the classic Dully type Smokes matchup, where one person, not that Stuff hasn't made moves in a few minutes, but that one player is looking to have 7 minutes to use and often using them, and the other player is like, if I don't move in 90 seconds, something's gone deeply wrong. But anywho, Smoke's thinking maybe he should have used 7-6-5-8. Where though? In 8? That seems worse than this move. The real strength of this move is that Stuff never has 5. Am I missing something? I feel like many moves should tie here. Reye seems to think Smokes is winning. I do not think this. I'm not doing extensive calculation, but to me, this looks like it should be a tie. Like, I guess Stuff is out of left and right, like really clunky going right. So for instance, maybe 7-5-7-6 isn't the way. Right? 7-5-7-6 and 6, maybe Smokes can just take 3, and you just run out of all power facing the game. That's fair. That seems plausible. So maybe Smokes has to play 7-2-8-8 and 4. But I am predicting 7-2-8-8 and 4 to hold. I don't see why that should be in trouble. Can Smokes go 6? And guarantee he has 2 in the bottom row? Maybe. Maybe Smokes has 6. And 1-7-8-9 sweeping the top. That's possible. Okay, 7-2-8-8-4. Something 6 could be scary. Probably has to be 7-6-5-8. But then you don't have a recapture in 5. So Smokes can probably take that with Ifrit in 3. Yeah, I stand by. 7-2-8-8 and 4, I think, holds. So my guess is a tie. It is also entirely possible that Ifrit in 1 of 4 or 6, or 7-5-7-6 and 6 ties. The whole tricky part of playing this position is you have 4 moves to choose between that have somewhat similar effects. But in general, I think Ifrit is your most multi-purpose card between the 3, and also your only right power, and thus your bias should be to use one of the other 2. We're kind of just going on general principles. And if you play in 4, you kind of give up a half square in 1, and if you play 6, you give up a potential safety in 3. And Smokes' hand is much better at taking advantage of that in 3 than in 6. Now, there's also the opposite instinct of like Smokes' hand is better going left than right, so play to the right. But I think in this case, it's what numbers you have facing out, not what numbers you have facing in, and he does go 4. So I thought this held. And in the last game, I had pretty decent opinions. So maybe despite the fact that my brain doesn't work anymore, maybe this does work. gonna just put this in the solver, but not necessarily look yet. We'll give you first turn. And 8765, 7288, 9348, 4993, and 7576. Okay, and our first turn player, rules, same plus wall combo. Our first turn player has such beautiful cards as 7873, which ended up being what I think was a quite nice starter. 9934, 1789, 7658, and 8187. So I liked this starter in a 7. Oh dear. I like it. The solver is like, no, it doesn't beat anything except just terrible moves. Moves that make no sense at all. Like 5 but no setup, right? Or 6, just ugly square. Okay. 8, 7, 6, 5, and 9. I was right about all the moves in 4 and 5 that I suggested. They were all fine. Smokes attacks in 8, which I thought was correct. Yeah. And stuff had 2 ties here. Alright, I did say I wouldn't check this immediately, so I apologize. I know watching chess commentary, it is kind of frustrating when people are just following what the computer says and not giving any thoughts of their own. Because, I mean, I guess the solver is not like widely available, so you don't have other ways to check it. But it's like offering something I could see anyway, but also like knowing the right moves isn't where you learn. Or isn't where you feel like you're engaging, just being told the right move. It's like, oh, it's because of this or this. And just checking what the answer is doesn't really offer that. Figuring out is good, is what I'm saying. But that said, because I saw it, you have to know it. The solver said, solver 2.0 or 3.0, whatever. The solver said 4 and 6 both tied, but you couldn't use Ifrit. Ifrit, neither of those squares lost, you had to hold on to Ifrit. So now Smokes gets to pick which way to attack, but I think everything should hold. I thought one idea was 7, 6, 5, 8, and 6. I'm curious how many ties there are after that. So we'll check. There is one tie. You have to find Ifrit 3 to tie that. So that might be a decent way to apply pressure. I think 5 never really applies pressure because, sort of parallel to last game, stuff has 1 or 6 and both are very appealing. Is there something to put in 1? There might be something tricky in 1. Not sure which card. Being lazy with the solver doesn't look like you can be very tricky in 1. Is there a way to be tricky in 2 or 3? I don't really think so. I think 7, 6, 5, 8, and 6 is probably the way to try and apply the most pressure, but it's not like finding 3 is that hard, because Smokes just doesn't have a recapture in 5. So I'd probably play it that way, but not very excitedly. I think our main line, just calculating it, not using solver, is 7, 6, 5, 8, 6, 4, 9, 9, 3, 3, 8, 1, 8, 7, 5, 9, 3, 4, 8, 2, and no plus 1, 7, 8, 9 does not sweep that endgame. That's what I think. But yeah, we'll see what Smokes does. So maybe a little more pressure than I thought from Smokes, but I also think like it's pretty hard to make a move that isn't 7, 2, 8, 8, and 4, 7, 5, 7, 6, and 6. Like, these are the moves you make once you realize Ifrit is more multi-purpose. The mistake you can make is using Ifrit. And I think that probably wasn't going to happen. So sometimes the solver says like 1 or 2 moves tie, and you think, ooh, high pressure. And sometimes it's like, oh, that's impossible. And in practice, this is just lost. And sometimes it's, oh, but it was the most normal moves you could make, right? I think if I was ranking moves, I would rank them, 7, 2, 8, 8, and 4 was also my pick. That number 1, 7, 5, 7, 6, and 6, number 2, and then the 4, 9, 9, 3. So the top two moves being the moves with the two ties, I think, and without them being like super complicated, like, wow, I really did some great thinking there, I think suggests fairly balanced game. And that, clicking around the solver, I couldn't find any move Smokes could make here that gave a tricky path for stuff. I think 7, 6, 5, 8, 6 is the trickiest path, in part because there's only one tie and it's not in 5. But, Smokes has done it. Alright, so we will see if this in fact can be tricky, but I think we're firmly in a safe calculation zone, and 3 is not such a strange move to find. Note, if there was plus on, this would be crushing. 1, 7, 8, 9 would sweep the top, 8, 1, 8, 7 would have a plus in 5, right? Everything would be going his way. This would be absolutely crushing should plus be turned on. Of course, we wouldn't have gotten here with plus turned on, but with plus turned on, this looks devastating. Yeah, what to say? The question is, do you find Ifrit 3? So the real question, right, is, are there other moves that could appeal, that could convince you not to play Ifrit 3? For instance, let's say you see 9, 3, 4, 8, 5 going up 6, 4. And you see, that doesn't. But you see 9, 3, 4, 8, 5 with safety. And you see, okay, if they play 8, 1, 8, 7, and 1, I have 4, 9, 9, 3, and 2, and I hold a tie. Right? So you see that line, maybe you convince yourself that's a tie. I think that's pretty easy to convince yourself of. The reason it loses is 8, 1, 8, 7, and 3, and that's not the first thing I'd check. And it only loses there because of a same, and it's kind of easy to forget about that. So my current guess is, if stuff screws this up, it'll be thinking 9, 3, 4, 8, and 5 ties. What else could you think is a tie? Could you think 4, 9, 9, 3, and 1 is a tie? I don't think you can think that, because Smokes goes 5, and 1, 7, 8, 9 sweeps you. And 5 kind of sweeps you too. So I don't think you can convince yourself 1 is a tie. Can you convince yourself 2 is a tie? Seems unlikely. I think the only move you can convince yourself is a valid option that isn't 3 is 9, 3, 4, 8, 5. Because from me looking at it, not having the solver tell me, it looks like there's only one win there. And it is not the card in its corner, right? If you're thinking about those two cards, 1, 7, 8, 9 is likely to sweep, and sweeps better on the right side, so 8, 1, 8, 7 goes on the left side. And this involves 8, 1, 8, 7 going on the right. But stuff has picked up the right card. I just think it's interesting to consider, like, where is there a chance people will screw up? Because they have to see something they get wrong. And I think the only move you could get wrong here is 9, 3, 4, 8, 5. Alright, stuff finds it, and we're going to be headed for a second tie. Again, it does start to really feel like Smokes is finding advantages here. I thought this game was looking pretty balanced. And maybe I should still count it as fairly balanced. Maybe Smokes was never going to miss 4 and then 3. Maybe Stuff was never going to miss that. But I think we got to say, like, Smokes found some advantage here, too. One thing I thought was interesting was in SC Nephilim, the first tournament back, and I think in Triad Wars 14, the second tournament back, anytime someone started pressing in the games, they ended up winning the match. And basically, I'm not sure like every single match this was true, but in very close to the entirety of the first two tournaments back, if you were ever significantly behind, you did lose that matchup. Now, since then, we've seen more back and forth matchups. But from those first two tournaments, I sort of am in the mindset of like, I guess if someone is who I consider to be the favorite and they start getting advantages, that person really often wins that matchup. The times they don't are when, like, in the first couple ties, assuming a bunch of ties. Oh, oh. Sorry, responding to something. Um, all right, so we're gonna pause for a sec, but it is to say, like, I remember in the Triad Wars 14 semifinals, for instance, and I remember these things better than you do because if you comment things, they stick in your memory better. Which, incidentally, is why my super advanced technique to get better at games is to talk about them and record videos like this. Uh, I think it's an unfair competitive advantage, and yeah, is really helpful because it makes every concept stick in your head much better. But what was I talking about? Just because I said it doesn't mean I can remember it 3 seconds later. It means I have a better chance to remember it a while later. Triad Wars 14 semifinals. Triad Wars 14 semifinals. One of them was me versus Turds, I think, and the other was Seto versus Akiyama. And I came in thinking Seto's going to win. And it was an offbeat rule set. I forget what rule was missing. It might have been plus. I don't think it was plus wall. I think it might have been a same plus wall combo set. Maybe same plus wall, same wall. It was something weird. Like, something was missing. I don't think it was the wall rules. And I think it was a high enough level same wall was in play. It was a curious set. Maybe it was same plus same wall. I'm not sure. Anyway, and I thought Seto was just going to beat Akiyama because Seto is the best, and Akiyama is the new blood that I have to be convinced is good. And I made a lot of videos back then being like, is Akiyama that good? And Akiyama is that good. And as the match went on, every time I thought Seto's position looked good, Akiyama just immediately found a move that made it clear there were nothing more than ties here. There's just going to be no serious pressure. Maybe there'd be a move where there's only one path to a tie, but it was all really clean and straightforward. And I think that's actually, I don't know if I've made it like my pick for best matchup at the tournament or anything, but I think it was a spectacular match. He did such a good job of every time Seto hit anything scary, just immediately making a move where it all went away. And anytime he had the chance to do anything scary, he immediately made it really scary. And it's like a 6 game match or so. And I think just every game is kind of a masterclass from him of finding pressure from neutral positions or from worse positions, just immediately negating the pressure in fantastic fashion. And by the time I got to the game he eventually won, I had moved from Seto is clear favorite to maybe Seto is tiny favorite. But I think I should have moved to Akiyama's just playing stronger on this rule set. You know, and winning or losing a single match doesn't mean the player is better or worse or anything like that. This is not to take away from how great Seto is, but it was pretty clear on this rule set Akiyama was playing better. And I could never quite get to that means he's favorite here. But I think at some point in that match, if you look at that match, you probably should conclude Akiyama's ahead here. Yeah, so Stuff is saying he thought the line in 9 could lead to something interesting. Yeah, I thought it was a pretty decent move. It created difficulty in 6. Instead, he had obvious moves, and I had to be super precise. Yeah, I mean, that is what happened. That is a correct evaluation of what happened. And I agree with every part of that evaluation. The move in 9 created an interesting challenge. Like, it lets Smokes go 4 because he doesn't have 8, but he actually does want 8, even though it doesn't lock in 7. For him, it locks in 7 for Smokes. But in the end, Smokes made straightforward moves that were quite difficult to deal with. So clear advantages for Smokes both games. And I don't know. I've had trouble switching who I think is the favorite based on the games, but given I think Smokes was the favorite coming in, this does look very good for Smokes. On the other hand, and the reason you can't be too strong on this, all it takes is one mistake, right? All it takes is one bad move, and all the trajectory of a series goes out the window, right? You don't like build up score on the opponent. Like, okay, I led by 20% in game 1, I led by 10% in game 2, and now sure I blew game 3, but I was up 30%, so that just knocked it out. No, you lose, you're out. So, and we've seen more of that in tournaments after. But it was a really strong tendency, at least in the early ones. I wonder if there was something to do with the rule sets on that. I wonder if we compared rule sets of some early ones to rule sets in the tournaments after that, if we'd see something different. I don't know. I think we'll end this video, and I'll come back with game 3 in the next video. That seems good. I have to go grab a charger too. So, win-win for all.